Hi folks, it's good to be with you. My name's Jason and you can get me on my website jasonburnspreacher.com. You can get me on Facebook and you can get me on Twitter. It's lovely to be with you and I want to just thank everybody for their support. I'm getting a tremendous amount of encouragement and support at the moment. I'm getting a lot of phone calls, people wanting to join up and work together. That's been amazing. But also on the multimedia, I've heard through the grapevine one video that we was involved in went viral and hit 3 million views. So that was on a social media network, and one video hit 3 million views. But also the tremendous amount of people at the moment that are just giving me encouragement on YouTube and other social media networks. So it's amazing. So thank you so much for all your encouragement. I want to just do some videos on this, and also I'm going to upload today a sermon. So watch out for that. There'll be a sermon uploaded tonight, and it's called Church in the Modern World, and it will really bless you. So we're looking at the Birmingham University Old Quranic Fragments. And it's a paper by J. Smith, and he writes, how should we respond to the Birmingham Quranic folios? Many people have been emailing me in the past 24 hours with requests concerning the significance of the new findings from Birmingham University about 2 folios, front and back, from an early Quranic manuscript. See the BBC article here, Oldest Quran Fragment Found at Birmingham University. Unfortunately, I am sequestered in some mountains to the east of Toulouse in France, teaching for a week, and due to the infrequent internet access here, was completely unaware of this news until a number of you notified me. The BBC article mentions that the 2 folios were tested recently by the Oxford University Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit, which has an exceptional reputation internationally. What's more, the 7th century has a more stable radiocarbon decay rate than, say, the 8th century, and has proven extremely stable from a wide sampling of leather, parchment and papyrus manuscripts from Europe and the Middle East. The Oxford laboratory dated these 2 folios within 95% accuracy from between 568 AD and 645 AD. This means that it could be one of the earliest dated Quranic fragments in existence. I've been asking for help to understand the significance of these findings from several experts in the field, one in particular who has done some preliminary research on this fragment and the radiocarbon dating of Quranic manuscripts. He is in contact with the Corpus Quranicum, a German Quranic manuscript project that is doing the most detailed radiocarbon dating with Quran manuscripts that has ever been attempted. They are endeavouring to reconcile radiocarbon dating with more established and trusted paleographic and codicological methods. So far they have dated more than 30 Qurans. Below is his and other synopsis of the current state of knowledge concerning these issues. Here are some useful things they have shared. Number 1. This is not the first manuscript fragment to be tested using radiocarbon dating. As a few months ago, scholars at the Tübingen University in Germany came out with similar findings on a set of fragments they tested at their laboratory. There is ongoing work on the manuscript which is showing a number of variants to the text which are being prepared for publication. The entire Tübingen manuscript can be viewed online here at University Tübingen Digilit MAV1165. You can notice that many of the variants are visible as corrections that have been made to the text. Number 2. One has to remember that the radiocarbon dating is not the date of the writing on the manuscript, but only the parchment it was written on. This is quite significant, since the latest dating, 645 AD, would only be the date that the animal died. The ink could have been applied many years or even decades later. In fact, one of the radiocarbon dating of the Sana palmist goes back before Muhammad's prophetic career, pre-600 AD. The current scholarly consensus, however, is that there are usually not a number of decades between the day an animal died and when it would finally be used for the writing of a manuscript. Except in the case of reissuing old manuscripts, see comments in the part on Palmer test in number 4 below. Animals were often killed and their skins quickly converted to parchment in order to fulfill commissions for luxury manuscripts, because often a large part of a herd were required for the production of the volume. Dating of the ink and pigment is a new area of study and will feature more prominently in future early Quranic manuscript projects. Then we will have much more accurate dating for early Qurans. This will add other criterion for constructing accurate dates for early Qurans. Sometimes parchments or vellum manuscripts are erased, the ink would be washed off and then writing again over top. These are known as palimpsests. The Tübingen fragments may have evidence of these layers of overwriting, which would mean that the scripts we are reading could have been written many decades later. We have not been told yet whether these Birmingham fragments could also be palimpsests. If so, we could be looking at just the latest layer of writing of a Quranic text. Initial examination does not seem to indicate that they are, but it is a possibility one must consider, since sometimes the removal of the original text was done extremely well and is difficult to detect after the fact. 5. According to the scholar Ave Lewis, since the radiocarbon testing shows that these folios were possibly written between 658 to 645 AD, the parchment may have been written well before the year 610 through 632, the alleged time of the revelation of the Quran, maybe even before the time the alleged prophet Muhammad would have been an adult man. That would be in agreement with other observations, e.g. that made by the late famous Tahu Hussein in 1926, who said that the Quran contains pre-Islamic metric poetry. 6. This article spends almost all its time praising the reliability of the Quran's textual history and doesn't mention the variations in the text which are well known to exist in almost all early manuscripts, including both the Sana MS as well as the Tübingen MS, a fact described in depth in the early traditions as well. The complexities of the Quran's early textual history are glossed over in this article, and instead of a full, well-rounded picture of the Quran's early transmission being given, a partial view which minimizes the aspects which disagree with an almost fundamentalist classical Islamic view is given. So I'm going to continue to read this article, and then I'm going to do a few videos just giving my thoughts and responses to this article. Number 7. David Thomas, one of those interviewed in the article, is not an authority on Quranic manuscript, and so speaks about the stones and bones in 650 AD as if was real history, without realizing that the stories he is quoting are not from the 7th century but from the 9th century. Al-Fadeli is a qualified Quranic expert, yet while her name is mentioned, her views are not given. One also wonders whether the writer Sean Coghlan is knowledgeable about the highly specialized material he is reporting about. From other research carried out by Yasson Dutton, Francois de Rock, and others, one finds just how different the early texts were from today's published version, and how many diacritics, short vowels, and other signs needed to be added to the text in order for it to be readable in that particular reading, suggests just how much the text was altered over the course of time. This is not mentioned in this article, of course, because it is blind spot for the writer. In fact, the entire tone of the article is one of advocacy of those who looked after the Quranic manuscript were wooing the Muslim community, especially those living in Birmingham. So there's more to read, and I'm going to read some more. I'm just going to give a few thoughts here. It's interesting that the scholar who's commentating, not Jay Smith, but the scholar in favour who's following the BBC line and the Orthodox Islamic view, or the Sunni view, is not aware of the critical history of the Quran in terms of the historical documentation of the scribes, which Muslims say is accurate, which in reality is late historical material. So for a scholar to talk confidently that he knows exactly when manuscripts were written and who wrote them, like the Muslim scholars do, is just intellectual dishonesty, because like it was said here, the historical material comes late after Muhammad, late after the Quran, in terms of the hadiths. Like Bukhari, I keep saying this, Bukhari comes 200 years after Muhammad, and then these hadiths, we don't have the first book of Bukhari till like 11th century, so it's many hundreds of years later have we got any evidence about Muhammad and the formation of the Quran. So a lot of this can be conjecture, and some of these scholars that speak on behalf of the BBC are really just following a party line without any real evidence or data. I'm going to go on to the next bit now.